Hi, I'm Lora Thomas, Director of Project Evers. We're promoting a new opportunity coming up for all participating Project Evers school districts for school staff to participate in a book study. The book that we're using is The Heart of Learning and Teaching, Compassion, Resiliency, and School Academic Success. We have the pleasure of having one of the book's authors with us today, Mona Johnson, and I'd like for her to talk just a little bit to introduce herself and her role and reason for co-writing The Heart of Learning and Teaching. Mona?
Thank you, Laura. It's great to be with you today. I'm so excited that you are all interested in spending time on the book study with the Heart of Learning Teaching, Resilience and Academic Success. I have to tell you that this is has been a labor of love, but let me step back and say, I'm Dr. Mona Johnson. I currently work in the South Kitsap School District and have been in the field of K-12 education for numerous years. And most of my roles in K-12 education have been surrounded on focusing around the needs of the whole child, which are the non-academic, social, emotional, and physical needs of students, and helping address in systems some of the barriers that make it difficult for them to learn. So when you talk about this book, it really was a labor of love for us, and it was written a while ago in 2009, but the tentacles of its reach have been very humbling to me and my co-writers and co-authors. We really put it together when in 2008, we were learning about adverse childhood experiences and first beginning to understand the true impact of trauma. And we had our ACEs studies with Dr. Folletti and Dr. Anda that we had just learned about in our state. And we actually went to another state, Massachusetts, because they had been doing some fantastic work around strategies and policies around trauma-informed practice, and we're really on the cutting edge. And we were attending a conference that they had in their state. It was kind of a smaller event, but they invited us to be there. And we were sitting in the lobby of a hotel. It was a motel, it wasn't fancy, a motel around a fire. And we're like, this is such powerful stuff. We all began to share a little bit about our own experiences in our career and personally. We thought, we got to write something, we got to put something together for our state of Washington. So we came back, and actually that came to fruition with this group of people. We actually were able to have enough tenacity to make it come to fruition. And I would say in the beginning of the book, I would encourage you to look at the reasons, because we decided when we did the preface for the book that we were going to share what were our motivations for putting something like this together. And each of us as authors talked about not just the work reason we did it, but the personal reason that we did it. And I'll just share with you my personal reason that I was a young child who grew up in a home that was pretty deeply impacted by domestic violence and alcoholism. And I witnessed the death of a parent when I was in middle school. And it was a very public situation. And what I will say is that no one in my school knew what to say to me, even though they all knew that this was an experience I had as a young person. And the only person who ever said something to me was a counselor at the end of when things were being resolved with my family. And this whole process went through a court system, again, in a very public, high profile way. And a counselor who said to me as I walked out of a lunchroom, I'm really glad that things worked out for you the way that they did with your family. And there was a time in my life I've reflected back on that, and it really was hurtful. But I will tell you today, I totally understand why that educator and other educators didn't know what to say to me, because we don't know what to say to our kids who are living with trauma. We don't know what to say to our kids who are living with high stress and many, many challenges. We don't know what to say to our kids who are dealing with multiple barriers outside of school. And so this book was written to help people understand those barriers are real. Here are some of what they are. There's lots of adversities, including adverse childhood experiences, but many more. And we can help our students overcome them if we will look, if we will listen, if we will learn. There are things that we can do in relationships and strategies that we can integrate into a school setting that can make a difference and help them. So that's really where the core of this book came from, and why we did this labor of love, other duties as assigned, voluntarily put it together.
That trauma-informed lens is so important. It's so critical for the adults to bring to school with them and form those relationships. There's no doubt about it. Many of our teachers are going to be seasoned teachers, as well as some new and young uh, on the small end or smaller end scale of experience. What can each of them expect to take away from the book study?
Well, the first thing I would ask them to do, whether as they're a seasoned veteran or a new teacher, is to approach reading this book with an open heart and an open mind, and from a space of caring, and to think about the environment that our students live in, because the premise of the book is really looking at how we teach in systems, and we're asking that we consider approaching the work from a compassionate standpoint and from a resilience and a trauma sensitive standpoint. So for example, with those students who are most challenging, doing and approaching them with compassion is really difficult, right? So that's where the open heart and open mind has to come into play, because these are the students often that we're talking about. So open heart, open mind in approaching it. And we're asking people then we outline in the book 3 domains that are really compassionate strategies that help us engage with students in a classroom environment and a system-wide environment. And then we also talk about 6 different very specific principles people can deploy to help address and help them be more compassionate and more trauma informed in the way that they're engaging with students and, quite frankly, staff for that matter. And so you'll learn about those principles. In particular, chapter 3 of the book dives deep into those principles and those domains with many, many examples. But the chapter 1 kind of frames trauma and adverse childhood experiences and brain science, which is critical in understanding all of this, because this isn't just touchy-feely. Our brains are deeply impacted by trauma. So we began to understand that. By the way, there's even better brain science than when we wrote this in 2009. So a brush up on that will be good for everybody, because we've learned so much more. Chapter 2 is about self-care, which is an ethical obligation, because in order to approach the system from a trauma-informed way, we have to be equipped and have enough energy and charge to do that. And we need to feel well enough ourselves to be able to do that. And then chapter 3 gets into those domains and principles I mentioned. And then chapter 4 is about school community partnerships, which are critical to addressing these needs, because schools alone cannot address and provide all the trauma-informed support that our students need. We have to have communities involved in that process too.
Thank you. That is a tease for what the 8-week book study is going to be all about.
You're going to have tons of fun. It's going to be really fun. 8 weeks to talk about this. I think it's fabulous. And you know what? Don't be surprised if I join you somewhere, because I'm thinking I might even want to crash one of those.
We're counting on that. So look for more information. There will be a number of book studies that will be scheduled, so anyone and everyone can participate. Also, a bonus, there's a stipend that's attached. We want you to learn, but we also want to take care of you in that learning process. And so join us, sign up and for one of the book studies, and we'll see you there.
Have fun at the book study, you guys. Look forward to hearing your feedback.
Thank you. We'll be sure to give some.